All right, good morning. Good morning, Thursday morning. Today, I've got the sads. Got up early and we had loaded up my daughter's U-Haul last night, got it all loaded up and got them off early this morning. Well, not as early as she wanted to, but early enough. The other daughter had to get up and shower and be ready to go. So they just left probably about 40 minutes ago. I got the sads. I just did a 30-minute zone 2 workout. I need to start adding that in. I kind of built that workout: 10 minutes of zone 2, 1 minute of zone 1, and then back to 10 minutes of zone 2, and then a 5-minute warm up and cool down on each side. I just did that, kind of processing through all this, and now I'm going to get my some light workout done. We're gonna get this done as all we're doing today because me and the wife have to go work the store today, and I need to get some get some workout going. Zone 2 first, get the fat burning, because then we're going to get into zone 3 and other stuff with this one. I have no idea what this is, but you know what? We're going to get a workout, we're going to get a sweat going. It is cold out this morning. I've got the garage door open, and it is chilly, not super cold, but cold enough. And we're going to get the workout going. What should we choose? Let's go something we haven't done yet. Let's do the jungle circuit. All right. So this is part of that 4-week Build Me Up Light program. So we're just going to follow along with what the program says here. I like the zone 2 warm up before. I'm warmed and ready to go. I've got some Tool blasting in the ears today, trying not to think too much about my daughter moving to Colorado and only been able to chat with her through the phone instead of seeing her when she comes home from work with her cranky attitude and everything else that comes with you know, an early 20-something. Come home from work all cranky and then get showered and get dressed up and then go out in the evening and then stay out too late and then get up and go to work in the morning and be cranky again. Kind of a repeat process that you know, I kind of did at that same age. So it was fun to just watch her coming home and being cranky. I'm not getting enough sleep. Well, stop going out and partying and having fun with your friends. But I want to hang out with my friend. Exactly. That's the sacrifice we all made when we were young. We wanted to hang out with our friends, but we still had to go to work. Still had a job to go do, make money. Whether you're living in an apartment, whether you're in the military, like I was. I think about her age, I had just gotten out of the military. So I had got an apartment with my brother, and I was driving for Coca-Cola, I think, about that time. I think I was a merchandiser, where you go out and you merchandise and put stuff on the shelves, and you're proving to the company that you're worthy of employing, and then they invest money in you and getting you your driver's license and teach you how to drive truck, and then they give you a truck to go out and drive this simple, easy routes. I think in the beginning I was a cover driver, so I would usually work a route that somebody would call in sick on, or an extra route that needed to be done. Eventually you work up to getting your own route, and then that was fun. For me, I'm not a big boss over my shoulder type person. It was one of the things in the military that annoyed me. That's why when I was in the Marine Corps, and when we first got to our first duty station, you don't have any place there. You're just doing grunt work. You're just doing, and I was a combat engineer, so we had electrical systems, we had plumbing systems, we had other systems that supported the grunts. So a lot of times what we were doing was we were going out and cleaning the equipment, moving this equipment out, and then cleaning underneath of it and moving it right back. Stupid stuff that just keeping you busy mainly is what it was. But I always like to be productive when I'm doing that. So a job came open, I don't know, probably like 6 months after I was at the duty station, maybe less than that, where the records manager was moving on and the job was coming open, and they were looking for anybody that wanted to, you know, step into that role. And I think I was a PFC, or a Yeah, I think I was a PFC at the time. And at the time, the job was carried by a lance corporal or a corporal. I said I'd give it a try, and sat down, and they showed me how to do the records. This is way back in the 80s, before computers, where everything was done on paper. So you had to, and we had several hundred pieces of equipment. And it was your job to schedule the maintenance every quarterly maintenance, yearly maintenance. When you had a request for the equipment to go out in the field for operations, you had to get that equipment pulled, you had to get it inspected. And it's your job to get the record jacket out there to the person who was doing the job. Then they would do the job and check off all the stuff, and then get it to the quality control, and it would work its way back to me, and I had to make sure that everything was done correctly, and then file that back in the rotation. A lot of equipment to keep going. But I enjoyed it because it was busy work. It was something to do instead of just doing dumb stuff. And I think within the first year, we had a major inspection coming up. Phase Mo, I think was what it was called. And I spent extra hours after duty, after work hours. I'd come down and make sure my record jackets, and make sure everything was, you know, T's were dotted, I's were crossed, all that good stuff. And then when the inspection showed up, sat down with the inspector. I think it was a sergeant or staff sergeant, and I passed. I passed that inspection perfect, not a discrepancy at all, which was fantastic, and I ended up getting a meritorious mass award for that. And you know, it made a big deal back then that I was actually recognized for doing some hard work. But I enjoyed actually the effort of having something to do on a regular basis. And then after, I think I ended up picking up Lance Corporal after that. I continued with that job for a while. And then our supply NCO was moving on, and they needed someone to fill that job, and none of the corporals wanted to take it over. So my gunnery sergeant asked me if I wanted to do it. I said sure, I'll give it a try. So I went in there and worked with the corporal who was leaving. He showed me everything, and back then it was a supply, so you were in charge of all the supply for the platoon, all the equipment. And it was a job billeted by a corporal or above. And here I was, like a first year Lance Corporal. Stepped in, took over the job. Wasn't any harder than the records job. But the one thing that was nice was I have my own office. Only 2 people had their own offices in our unit. That was our chief warrant officer and me, supply NCO. I have my own door locked because you had to keep control of the equipment, a lot of tools and stuff that you had to issue out to the Marines when they would come in to work on equipment. You had to check it out to them, and they had to account for it and all this stuff. Then I had to sit down and look at the supplies, what we needed, and a lot of times I would get so far ahead of myself that I could actually get in there and take naps, which was fantastic. Get my job done early in the morning, lock the door, and put my head on my desk for an hour or so until lunch break, or till someone knocked on the door or the window, and I had to get up and take care of that. But like I said, I enjoyed that job. And then we had another inspection. Came up with that. General inspection, something like that. And spent extra hours prepping for that, getting all my stuff polished, you know, the records and everything done. And the inspection came, I passed with flying colors again, but they had to check me for something, and it was one of those, you're doing it right, but we would like it if you would do it this way instead. So they didn't give me 100%, they gave me a 99.5, whatever it was, because they wanted me to do a certain thing a certain way. Although the way I was doing it was within proper regulations, the inspector just wanted me to do it differently, so he didn't give me 100%. I was really ticked off about that. And then my gunnery sergeant put me up for promotion, meritorious promotion for corporal. And I think there was several other people that were up for it. I think there was only like 2 positions in the company that were available, whatever. I went in and tested for that, and I'm not a super great test person. I can do the job fantastically, but doing tests, always intimidating. If you give me the test and tell me it's not a test, I'll pass it in flying colors. If you give me a test, you tell me it's a test, and you get nervous, and you know, so I didn't do super great. I think I came in 3rd out of 2, so I didn't get promoted. I wasn't too concerned about it. Wasn't really ready for it at that time anyway. I was still 21 at the time. And then I got orders to go to Okinawa. The last year or so of your enlistment, they like to ship you off. If you start in Okinawa, you come back to the States. If you start in the States, you go to Okinawa. If you're on the East Coast, I think you go to Japan, or there's other places that they go to. Marines don't go to Europe, not as a duty station. We've been kicked out of Europe ever since Belleau Woods, and that was always the rumor they talked about, was Marines aren't allowed in Europe as a duty station because we're just too ferocious. I don't know what the real story is, but it's always sounded good. After Belleau Woods and the Germans giving us the nickname Devil Dogs. Pretty ominous nickname that you want to carry around. So I ended up going to Okinawa, starting all over again, back in the platoon, back to doing busy dumb work. Okinawa was a totally different experience though. Really didn't want to get back into the records job or anything like that. I was trying to get on an operation, a float, anything that would get you off of the rock for a while. And then operation came up for Team Spirit, which is South Korea, where you practice landing and moving towards the DMZ to repel an invasion from the DMZ. But since I was a combat engineer, our job was to go over before everybody else and set up a base camp. So we were the first ones there, and it was January, like the middle or end of January. And you go from Okinawa, mild, nice climate, to South Korea, which was below 0. That was a nice shock. And we stayed on this base called Moonchuk, and it was hole in a wall. We had to live in these wooden barracks for about 2 or 3 weeks while we built our strongbacks and where our base was. And then we put tents over them, and I think it was 20 men in each tent, big enough for your cotton, your sleeping bag, and your stuff. And then from there, we would be trucked over to the docks and the pier to start building the base for the generals and the headquarters staff that would land, set up, and run the operation from there. And for us, like I said, building the strongbacks, putting the tents up, doing the electrical, getting the shower units, getting the laundry units, getting all that stuff set up our own little weight tent, weight room. The best place to be during that time was in the laundry room, run the dryers, maybe diffuse a couple exhausts into the tent, and it was muggy warm in there. I found a hack while I was there. Was they were selling these knockoff Gore-Tex jumpsuits, zipped from the crack of your butt all the way around, all the way up. And you would wear that underneath your camis and put your scarf around your neck and have a beanie. You didn't want the first sergeant to catch you wearing that. It was not approved. So you had to be careful when the first sergeant was around to be covered up so he wouldn't see it. He wanted you to wear the regulation thermals that did nothing but insulate the cold on you. So a lot of us bought those jumpsuits. They were fantastic. At nighttime, I would shove it at the foot of my sleeping bag, and sleeping bag would be zipped all the way up, just a little hole for your nose, nice and warm in a little cocoon. And in the morning when you get up, you didn't want to get right out right away because it was below zero. You shimmy to get that thing turned on, get that suit on, then you could actually get up and start getting dressed. But that was a very fun experience. We had Liberty out in town was every other day. It went by the last number on your Social Security, whether you were odd or even. Then that's when you were allowed to go out in town. When we stayed on base, we had built an extra strong back for a party strong back. So we had tables in there and they had a bar. Our captain would use company funds and go out and buy cases of beer. And we'd have Korean beer in there. So on days that you couldn't go out in town, you would go into the E Club and we would play spades, drink, bullshit, talk about our adventures in town or the best bar to go to. So it was quite fun. That was when Guns N' Roses was hitting it really big in the States, and I'd never heard them before because I'd left before they got big. So I had a Lance Corporal with me from another company. We used to hang around because we loved rock and roll. He was a tall black guy, and he loved rock and roll. So we had the new Guns N' Roses tape. And he said, "You gotta listen to this band. This band is fantastic." So I said, okay. So I borrowed his cassette, and on the ride from our base over to the workstation over on the docks was probably about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And we'd all ride in the back of a big deuce and a half. So we got in there and I put my headset on, hit the cassette tape, and the next thing I know, I heard Welcome to the Jungle for the first time. I was blown away instantly on how fantastic, how catchy the groove was, how fantastic Axl's voice was. At the time, I was a big Motley Crue, Ozzy, Dio, Ronnie James Dio. All that rock and roll was good for me. Poison, yeah, I like Poison. But that was just electric from the first song. And usually when you listen to an album for the first time, it's like you don't know the songs, so you're trying to get them synced into your system. But every song on the album that came on just automatically sunk into my system. I was in love with every song from the beginning. And I listened to the album over and over and over until he wanted it back. And then obviously when we got back to Okinawa, we went down to the PX. They had a music section and they had the album in there, so I was able to buy it then. But that was one of those good experiences that I remember of South Korea. There's many other good, fun experiences. Some crazy experiences riding in the taxis. The taxi drivers don't follow the speed limit or the traffic signs of the law. They all race up to a stoplight. They line up as many cars as can be across. If there's only 2 lanes, they'll line up four wide. And when the light goes green, it's a race to get through the intersection. And we just thought that was the craziest, funnest thing ever. We'd have a car full, 4 or 5 of us in there with the driver. Whether you were going out to town or coming back in, being drunk and riding, a couple times having to pull over to the side of the road because a couple guys had to open the door and throw up and they were so drunk. Whew, fun. Really learned to control my alcohol back then. You're in a foreign country where you can become a victim very easy, especially around alcohol and lovely young ladies. So I really learned how to control, not over drink, just drink just enough to have fun. Getting drunk and getting hammered was for back at base on the days when you didn't go out in town. We would trade over the back fence, the little town that was behind the base. We would trade MREs for Korean soju. Back then was potent stuff. And we get the big combat bottles, as we called them, big bottles for like an MRE or 2 MREs. And then we would get Robitussin from the PX. And back then, Robitussin had codeine in it. So we would mix a bottle of Robitussin with a combat bottle of soju and then pass it around the barracks. And we would get freaking hammered and just do the craziest shit. We'd move all the bunks out of the way. We'd have wrestling matches, drunk off your ass. It was more laughing. There were some guys that would get a little bit more physical because they were the aggressive, real aggressive. I always got aggressive, but I always kept it in check. I did not want to hurt my fellow Marines. And I wasn't super huge back then. Like I said, I was only like 180 pounds, 185 pounds, tall and skinny, but I was pretty damn strong. But it was fun getting hammered and wrestling, doing a make-believe combat that you do when you're drunk. We had some comics, a couple of comedians in there that would just do the craziest shit and just make us just laugh our ass off. And stumble outside. Of course, winter was waning and it was time for spring. We were there for almost 4.5 months. So we were there during the whole duration of Team Spirit. Of course, we didn't really participate because we were the support crew. We set the base up, maintained it, and tore it down. So after the grunts left and the headquarters staff left, it was our job to tear everything down, get everything packed up and cleaned off. So when all the tanks and all the armored gear would come rolling back in, Japan does not want a speck of Korean soil on their land. It's their issue. So we had a pressure washer with a water cannon out there as the tanks and the armored vehicles and the Jeeps and the Humvees, and no Jeeps, but the Humvees and the Cut Bs. I think we still had Cut Bs back then, the pickups. We'll come rolling in. It was our job to wash them all down and clean them all off. And I always liked that duty. That duty was fun. You get to hang out with the grunts when they get out of the tanks, and you get to climb in the tank and expect, check it out and do all that fun stuff doing that. So we did that for at least a week or so, just cleaning all that equipment off. Of course, you got a corporal or a sergeant out there with you, so you can't get too out of control. He has the quality control to make sure that all the dirt was washed off, and it wasn't our corporal or sergeant, it was the company of tanks or whatever that was rolling in. It was them that was inspecting to making sure that everything was done. It was our job to operate our equipment. It was their job to make sure that we got it all cleaned off. So that was fun. And then by the time spring started settling in, it was getting warm, it was nice out. Then we got to fly out and go back to Okinawa. We get back to Okinawa, I think I had like 3 months left at that time. And I was meritoriously promoted to corporal. Yay, I get to be corporal now. So now I have to be in charge of my best friend who was with us, Scott, who lives in Indiana. We were with each other everywhere except for boot camp. He was in South Carolina, I was in San Diego. We met in North Carolina at our infantry, at our MOS training school. And we became good friends there. We became better friends over the years that we lived together and hung out and did shit, crazy shit together. And he's a skinny country boy from southern Indiana. So his attitude and my attitude were perfect. With his sarcasm and my sarcastic attitude, we blended so good together. Still talk to him. I would love to make a trip to Indiana, see him, hang out with him. We'll see if that ever happens. We talk on the phone and communicate through social media. He would be here right now, standing next to me, laughing my ass off, telling me, "What the fuck are you doing that for? Let's go drink a beer." He was not into exercise. He was not into any of that. Still love him though. Still a brother who would go to combat with me and be right there next to me. I still do the same for him. So we got back to Okinawa and just chilled. There was nothing else going on. So I had to assume the role of corporal and be responsible for a platoon. And that was fun. It wasn't too bad of a deal. But it was too short time to go on another float, another operation. And of course, that's when they start getting you to try and re-enlist. By that time, I'd been gone for a while. I wanted to go home. Not really thinking of the future, just thinking of the current state. And I opted not to re-enlist, not to take the bonus. They probably should have got me when I was back on the stateside. Because when I flew back, I went right to the process out unit. And I was there for like a month getting processed out. They would probably sent me to a unit. They might have got me to stay. But one of the hang-ups I had in the Marine Corps, I still have it to this day, is I don't like doing stupid stuff. I want to do something for a reason. I want to do exercise for a reason. I want to do an operation for a reason. I want to clean something for a reason. I just don't want to go to work and do stupid busy work with some supervisor standing over my shoulder telling me how to do it. So that was one of the negative side effects that I didn't like. I tried to talk my warrant officer when we were in Pendleton about taking our equipment and setting it up down the road from us. There's a river, and we could have set our stuff up. Just had heavy equipment, move our stuff out there, set up a tent. We could have had a corporal and a sergeant and a platoon of Marines go out there, live out there for a week, set the equipment up, get it running, get the water purification running, get the shower units running, the MBC, nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons or cleaning gear, running the showers, set all that up so that we would actually have real hand experience of doing it. And in the meantime, you would still be able to walk up to chow, eat chow. You wouldn't have to eat MREs, but you would be required to sleep in the tent and hang out down there like a real operation. The sergeant and the corporal will be in charge of the unit while you're doing that. And it sounded great. I was like, man, that'd be so much fun and great experience for people that haven't set this equipment up and haven't actually done it. But they came up with some lame excuse that it would cost too much money. And I just did not understand how it would cost money, because we set this shit up at our lot and we run it at our lot. We have diesel in the equipment to run the generators. If anything, it might cost a little bit more diesel to run the generators. But once you are running the generators, then you can run the rest of the equipment. The river right there would just be sucked up, run through the equipment, and then dumped right back out in the river. So it was, to me, it was a failure of the Marine Corps at that point to improvise and do realistic training that we really needed, because I got out in right at the end of '88, and of course within 2 years we were in Desert Storm, and I was that close to re-enlisting and going back in, because I was having separation anxiety. I was driving for Coca-Cola. I was listening on the radio in my truck while I was making my deliveries about the reports that were going on, and I was really close to re-enlisting. But then I always remembered how the Marine Corps just failed in aspects that I wanted, was to train better, train smarter, and train for realism. And that always upset me, just enough where I didn't go back in. So I've always tried to do a training, my training, like in real life. When I was working at the prison before I retired, we had to qualify for weapons once a year. And then once I was a weapon carrying sergeant, I had to qualify every 3 months. So I would go out there every 3 months, and I would always train. No practice, no nothing. You're pulling the weapon out of your holster. You're taking the quickest sight you can, and you're putting rounds on the paper as quickly as possible, because that's a realistic scenario. You're not taking your time to try and line up the sights and get a perfect shot. If somebody's coming at you with a weapon, you need to get on target as quickly as possible and stop the threat. And since my job, the last 8 years that I worked there, was the outside perimeter of the prison, I carried a weapon. Of course, it was my job to stop, report any threat, and respond, obviously, to any threat coming in. And there was always a threat of somebody coming to our headquarters, which was outside of the prison walls, and coming in and shooting people, whether it was at night or during the day. So you always had to be ready to respond to an active shooter. So I always like to train in that realistic type environment where you have just a few split seconds to make that shot. You're not going to have all day. So for me, it's just realism training is where it should be at. That's why I like to come out here, whether I'm doing the Zwift, whether I'm doing the X3, just wake up out of bed, take my vitamins, take my protein, my amino acids, and get out here and just start training right away. You never know when you're gonna have to jump up out of bed in the middle of the night and respond at 110% to defend your life, your home, your family. So that's always my thing, was train hard and train as realistic as possible. That's good. I talked through this whole thing. It was a nice story. So you can listen to me ramble while we ride this. I didn't really pay attention. I just tried to stay within the watts and the gear that they wanted me to stay in. All right, now we're on cool down. Whew. That was a good double workout today. I got 31 minutes of zone 2, getting the spin in, and then getting this workout done. No fan going. I am sweating profusely, but it is chilly out here, so it feels good. And that's it. We're not doing X-ray today. It's probably a little after 8. I got to go in and get the wife up and get her in the shower. Whether she's going to the store or not, I still have to go to the store and run the store. If she stays home, then I'll have to run home a time or two during the day, take her to the bathroom and get her something to eat. I'm not sure what she wants to do. She was kind of a little emotionally broke up, obviously hugging her daughter before she left. So we'll give her that space and try to be compassionate over that. I deal with it in my way. I will be texting them profusely while they're driving to make sure that they're doing all my driving tips when they're driving with a trailer, staying away from big trucks. Of course, today in America, California, you never know who's illegal and illegal driving. It might just take you right off the freaking road. So, rule number 1, stay away from big trucks. If you come up behind them, pass them. If you got to speed up to pass them, get in front of them. If you're behind them, stay behind them until you have a passing lane, and then pass them and get past them. Look behind you when you come up to a stop on the freeway, highway, whatever. If they're, especially on the freeway, if there's a big truck behind you, because they aren't always braking these days. Be in a position to be able to move out and move out of the way. Don't pull up right behind a car in stop traffic to where you're hemmed in. Leave a car length between you and that car so that if something happens, you can pull to the side. And I always try not to sit in the middle where all the traffic is, either on the left or on the right, so I can pull out of way. My wife always gets mad that I drive on the fast lane, the left lane, but I always try to explain to her that's for easier maneuverability, and I only have to watch what's in front of me, what's to my right, and what's behind me. I don't have to watch what's left of me. So, little tips for driving. And we're right there at the end. Whew, that was a good workout. We're gonna finish this up and edit it. Whew. Whew. Boom, there we go, we're done. That was a good workout. I talked through the whole thing, so it should have been harder than it was, but I think my endurance is stronger than what I thought it would be. My legs feel fantastic. They feel like they're getting stronger every time I do this. On the zone 2 cardio, I was really trying to keep my heart rate under 135, and I was trying to keep my pedal rate and my pedal spin at like 80. And then with erg mode, it moves back and forth whether you're going uphill or downhill to keep you within that. So that's it for today. No X3, no nothing else. We're going to compile all this. We're going to get her in the shower. We're going to cool off, and then we're going to get on with the day because we got to go work the store, because ain't nobody going to work the store but me. My daughter's on her way to Colorado. So get it done. Go live your life, and I'll see you tomorrow or next time. Okay, let's see. Boom, in ride. Save it. Let it save up. Let's just post that to the, oh, I didn't get a chance. Okay. Now, I didn't get a chance to post it to the club. I gotta be quicker. All right, we're out of here.